The 22nd edition of the FIFA World Cup, 233 days away. While competition in Qatar doesn't kick off until the wintertime, there is still plenty to discuss. We react to today's World Cup draw. The 32 participating nations now set into 8 groups of 4, joined by the Action Network's BJ Cunningham and Michael Leboff. I am Brendan Glasheen. Welcome to the Action Network's World Cup draw betting breakdown. We're going to discuss and dissect group by group, weigh in on Team USA. Of course, player past the red, white, and blue this upcoming winter. Plus, BJ and Mike, they'll make their favorite bets for the Cup to win the Cup, and then we'll each give our long shot bets for the World Cup, which again starts at the end of November into December. We will have a champion. That's all coming up on this show. So we look forward to having you with us on YouTube, also on the TAM podcast. So, fellas, with the odds now out, whatever book you may please to find odds. And of course, we encourage you to go find the best odds possible when betting the World Cup and looking at this current draw with all the groups now organized. BJ, we'll start with you. What's a bet you want to make right away, right now? You just can't let it go away.
Well, Senegal has already dropped from 100 to 1 to 50 to 1. That would have been my bet, but they've gotten a little too short. So I love Serbia at 80 to 1. They're in a pretty favorable group with Brazil, Switzerland, and Cameroon. Switzerland, a team I'm not really high on. I don't think really has the talent to compete in this group. This Serbian team, we haven't seen at a major competition in a long time, but boy, do they have a lot of talent, especially up front with Dusan Vlahovic, the Juventus striker, Alexander Mitrovic, who's been playing for Fulham for quite a long time, and then Luka Jovic, who also plays for Real Madrid. They have talented wingers like Dusan Tadic, who plays for Ajax, Filip Kostic, who plays for Eintracht Frankfurt in the Bundesliga. And then they have potentially one of the best central midfielders that I don't think many people have heard of, Sergej Milinkovic-Savic, who plays for Lazio in Serie A. He is a vital part of their team and really connects up to those attackers. They're probably not going to beat Brazil, but I'm definitely going to have them as pretty good favorites over Switzerland and definitely favorites over Cameroon. And then if they finish second in this group, which most likely they will, they'll get a rematch with Portugal, a team that they beat on the final day of their qualifying group to actually win and get through to the FIFA World Cup. So at 80 to 1 with a team with this much talent, I think Serbia is the bet you have to make right away because I don't think that it's going to stay very long at 80 to 1.
Leboff, what's a bet you want to make right now based on the current odds after today's World Cup reveal?
Oh, Canada, our home and native land. 250 to 1 on Canada. Right now is a gift. Look, when you're betting these tournaments, you're basically betting the path, you're betting the draw, right? That's why it's so important to get down right away. And you couldn't have scripted this better for Canada. They're in Group F with an overrated Belgium side, a Croatia team that's very old, and Morocco, who, look, it's basically a coin flip between Canada and Morocco as the biggest long shot in this group. But I think Canada, look, this team has built an ethos around it. They've come together. They were very, very impressive in CONCACAF qualifying. So I don't think this number is going to hang around much longer, 250 to 1. And as you get closer and closer, I think there's going to be a lot of hype around the Maple Leafs. Like, you want to get down on this team now, join the fun. And look, they have one of the best national anthems in the entire draw. It's going to be electric when they're singing "Oh Canada" in Qatar. So get down on these Reds now. I think I like them, and in any derivative, right? You want to bet them to win the World Cup, to get out of the group, or maybe to even win Group F, because I think Belgium, they are a paper tiger going into 2022.
So based on that handicap, you are hoping Canada just gets off to a really fast start. Right after the anthem, they take the field and they are just dialed in from the very start. I like it. Very good. So as we mentioned off the top of the show, we are going to go group by group and break it all down. All the odds are out there for each of these nations to win the World Cup. But now we're more curious about which teams, or which team I should say, comes out of each group. So for example, we'll start in Group A. Qatar, the hosting nation, of course. Then you have the Netherlands, Senegal, BJ mentioned them, and then Ecuador at 150 to 1, second longest behind the host country in Qatar in this group. So we'll start with Group A. Gentlemen, we'll start with BJ. I would imagine you're picking Senegal to come out of Group A, BJ, based on your wisdom at the top of the show.
Absolutely. I mean, Senegal is the best team in Africa. They showed that they won Africa Cup of Nations. They got by Egypt in the final qualifying playoff. It's a team with a ton of talent. You know, Sadio Mane, who plays for Liverpool, one of the best wingers in the world. They have solid midfielders like Idrissa Gana Gueye, who plays for PSG. They have one of the best center backs in the entire world that not a lot of people have known of in Koulibaly, who plays for Napoli, and then one of the best goalkeepers in the Premier League, Edouard Mendy. It's a team with a lot of talent, and they've shown it throughout the latest competitions. And more importantly, when you're going to these type of competitions, it's a team that's been playing together quite a bit. They had, 6 matches at Africa Cup of Nations and then 2 playoff qualifying matches. So they've had a lot of experience playing with each other. I'm guessing my prediction is they will get through this group, but they're probably going to finish in second behind the Netherlands, a team that has just loads and loads of talent. Obviously got knocked out in the round of 16 at the Euros because of a red card against the Czech Republic, but they didn't have Virgil van Dijk, their best center back, during that tournament. So that's a team that's going to be very dangerous and is probably going to end up winning this group. And that's why you see them as minus 160 favorites. So my pick is Netherlands and Senegal to basically cruise through this group, because I don't think Qatar or Ecuador really have the talent to compete with these two squads.
Leboff, out of Group A, who do you like?
Yeah, a slight disagreement with BJ here, because I like Ecuador. I think this is a team full of young talent. And I think because so many people are going to be talking about Senegal and Netherlands, we're going to see these odds on Ecuador kind of creep through, and they should stay around where they are. They're 150 to 1 right now. But this is a team that was pretty impressive in a marathon qualifying in CONMEBOL. Like South American qualifying is brutal. And they got through. They have young players like Piero Hincapié, who plays for Leverkusen, Pinion in Valencia, Cifuentes, who's a good central midfielder for LAFC. And like BJ said, this is a team that has played together for a little bit now, and they're young and they're coming up together. So a little bit like Canada, right? This is a team that has good team spirit. And I think that with everybody paying attention so much to Senegal and Netherlands, rightfully so, we could see Ecuador, who play Qatar first, which is key, because if they can get those 3 points, and then you have Netherlands and Senegal battling out, they're in the driver's seat for the group. So I actually don't mind Ecuador across all markets here. If they can get by Qatar, then they're in the driver's seat for a group. And I mean, BJ and I talked about Netherlands before the draw, saying like, look, we both like this team. They were 16 to 1 before the draw. They shortened to 10 to 1, and they're going to keep shortening down to single digits because of this great draw. But it's a good draw for the two long shots too, in Senegal and Ecuador.
Do either of you give the host country any bit of a chance in group action? I mean, I got to ask, right? It's Qatar here, Group A. They're the host country, so of course they're in Group A. Let's give the host country a little bit of love in terms of our attention. Any chance here, BJ, for the host country to make some noise?
I don't think so. I mean, they played in the Gold Cup this summer against, the United States, and they actually probably should have beat them in the semifinals. But it's a team that really hasn't been playing much together. They haven't really been tested. They did the first round of World Cup qualifying, even though they were already going through as the host nation, and they dominated a bunch of smaller sides across Asia. But no, there's just not enough talent. Too many guys that aren't playing in some of the top leagues around the world. Most of them are playing around the Middle East. So it's a team that once they get to the World Cup and they have to face a team that has the talent like the Netherlands or Senegal, it's going to be a massive step up in competition. So I don't really give the host nation that much of a chance here to get through Group A.
Leboff, did you study the Qatar national anthem before today's show, or?
No, I've been trying to stay out of the Qatari like geopolitical stuff as best I can.
Okay.
But they do have a chance, because they would want Ecuador in the first match too, right? Like you can say, just looking at the odds, it's Ecuador should be favored, but it's on Qatari soil. So they have home field advantage here. So they got the best draw possible as well. And look, this is FIFA. We saw what happened in 2002 with South Korea. Like you can never, ever count out some shenanigans happening. So do they have a chance? Yeah, but I would much rather be putting my money down on Senegal or Ecuador to be the shotgun rider with Netherlands.
On to Group B, England, the United States, which we'll get more on the United States later in the show, some more in-depth discussion on the red, white, and blue. Iran and Wales, as well as Ukraine and Scotland, are some teams that we will discuss here in Group B. But of some of these teams, England and Iran are the two teams that jump out. Iran at 350 to 1, England's at plus 600. The United States at 100 to 1. So, of course, England is the team to beat in this group. BJ, is England your pick out of Group B?
Yes, England is by far and away the best group. I have them rated as number one in my power rankings, just an edge above Spain. England, I believe, is going to win the World Cup because they have not only the most talent, but the most depth of talent in this entire tournament. I mean, you have obviously Harry Kane up top, but he has capable strikers behind him. I mean, the plethora of attacking midfielders that Gareth Southgate has to deploy, and we saw it at the Euros, it's just mind-numbing to some of these other teams who are barely scraping together a few guys. And they're solid at the back. They have two really, really good defensive midfielders in Declan Rice and Calvin Phillips. It's honestly, I think the best team in the world, and I think they should cruise through this. We'll see how they do against the United States. I have them as a minus 225 favorite against the United States, and they'll be favored by more over any other team in this group. So yeah, it's England should cruise through Group B.
Latest FIFA rankings on goal.com. England is your number 5 team in the world. How about you, Leboff? You taking England as well, or is there a dark horse pick out of Group B?
I mean, I would say that if there is a dark horse group or pick in Group B, it's going to be USA, or if Wales gets through. I think those are the only 2 teams out of the possible group of 5 that are left to challenge them. But with England, like, they're the best team in the group by eons. But it comes down to what it always comes down to with England, which is, can they handle the pressure? They're going to be playing in a group with possibly either Wales or Scotland and the United States. So it's going to be a weird kind of narrative street for them to walk down. But on talent alone, like, they should be able to cruise through, especially with their first group match being against Iran.
Number 4 ranked team in the world, Argentina, just a smidge ahead of England. Argentina is your favorite in Group C in terms of favorites to win the cup at plus 750. I'm looking at DraftKings right now in terms of my odds. These guys are looking at plenty of books, getting you ready for the World Cup. Again, we are breaking down each group. We will have more thoughts on Team USA, favorite bets, as well as dark horse bets from BJ and Leboff as the show rolls on, the World Cup draw. So Group C includes Argentina, as I mentioned, Mexico, Poland, and Saudi Arabia. BJ, Argentina.
Yeah, this is clearly one of the easiest draws for one of the pot 1 teams. Argentina should just breeze right through this. Obviously, they play Saudi Arabia in the first match. That's a team I will be betting not only to finish last in this group, but to be the lowest scoring team of the entire tournament, one of the more overrated teams throughout the entire world. But, you know, Mexico obviously struggled a little bit in CONCACAF World Cup qualifying. I think, you know, the 2 performances against the United States and against Canada were really eye-opening. They obviously took care of business against all the other sides. And then Poland, well, it's Robert Lewandowski or nothing, as usual. So Lionel Messi and company, they haven't lost since 2019. So they're on a really long unbeaten streak. They've been really good. They obviously won Copa America this summer in South America. So Argentina should cruise through this group. As far as a second place finisher, it's really a coin flip between Mexico and Poland.
How about you, Leboff?
Yeah, I mean, Argentina, they were 12-1 before the draw, so they've already shortened almost in half. So it tells you that we went from a lukewarm favorite to a contender just based on this draw with a struggling Mexico side. Like BJ said, a kind of a one-trick pony with Poland, and Saudi Arabia is going to be one of the biggest long shots in the group, in the whole field, I should say. I don't mind if you take a shot on, like, if you want to get frisky and like take a shot on Saudi Arabia just to qualify. If they get lucky, maybe earn a draw in that first match. And these tournaments are all chaos, right? There's always going to be a surprise package that makes it to the round of 16. And this group with Poland and Mexico being in the form that they are and with their talent kind of aging out, it's not a crazy thing. Would I suggest it as like a lock? Absolutely not. But yeah, it does seem pretty straightforward here for Argentina.
Great to have you all joining us on YouTube Live. We are also on the TAM podcast, so we are keeping eyes out for our folks that are watching live on YouTube. So apologies if you're catching up on the podcast, and we are talking to our live audience as well. We move on to Group D. BJ, France is your favorite here at plus 650.
Yeah, and they rightfully should be. I mean, this French team, they obviously are the defending World Cup champions, but we saw some cracks in the Euros. They had really good form. They were in the group of death with Germany and Portugal. They got through, they won that group, and they lose in extra time to a Switzerland team that they were way better than. So it's a team with obviously a ton of talent. They have the best player in the entire tournament, Kylian Mbappe. And it's a team, I think they really should easily get through this group. The match against Denmark is going to be very interesting. The Danes are a really, really good team, made it all the way to the semis of the Euros and bring back pretty much that entire squad for this World Cup. As far as this group is concerned, I mean, it should be Denmark, France 1-2. You could take a shot at Denmark to win this group because I think they are live against France when they play them. But the other 2 teams, Tunisia, I mean, I barely have them ranked inside the top 10 in Africa. And then the intercontinental playoff between Asia and South America. I mean, it's Peru, who's a very overrated team, and then Australia or United Arab Emirates, 2 teams that I don't even have ranked inside the top 50. So it should be a cruise for France and Denmark. But if you want to take a shot, I think Denmark is pretty live to potentially win this group, but France and Denmark are definitely going through.
Denmark 25-1 to win the cup in 2022. France, your number 3 ranked team, according to gold.com. Leboff, what about you? You taking the cheese on Denmark, or is France coming out of Group D?
Yeah, I'm in agreement with BJ. I think if you want to take a shot with Denmark to win the group, go right ahead. They're going to be incredibly trendy, just like they were before the Euros. They shortened from like 40-1 all the way down to in the mid-20s, and they showed bettors why, right? Like they went on a semifinal run. They were plucky. They just got they played well against England. They lost in extra time, so they gave bettors full value for their money at long odds. And guess what? They're going to go right back to the Danes once again for the World Cup. Peru is interesting just because they were really trendy before 2018. A lot of people liked them at like 6-1 to win their group. They were an upstart team that just never really got it together. So I'm interested just to see the market movement on Peru if they are the team that does qualify into this group through that playoff. But other than that, yeah, pretty straightforward here. France and Denmark in what should be coast for both of them.
4 groups down, 4 groups to go. Once again, if you're joining us on the TAM podcast, we also have you on YouTube. You can, of course, watch the archived episode on our Action Network YouTube channel. Brendan Glasheen with BJ Cunningham and Michael Leboff here to break down the World Cup draw. All 32 teams have now been organized into 8 groups of 4. We're going group by group. We'll have thoughts, more specific thoughts on Team USA later in the show. Player past the red, white, and blue, and we will also get favorite bets, best bets from Leboff and Cunningham, as well as their favorite long shot when the show concludes. So let's go to Group E. Spain is ranked inside the top 10, number 7 team as of today, according to goal.com. And Spain is at plus 750 to win the World Cup in 2022 in Qatar. BJ, thoughts on Spain, or is there another team here in the group that stands out to you?
I mean, the clear 2 teams that I think everybody's going to think are go through are Spain and Germany, but I think the Japanese team is kind of live to potentially qualify here. They have some talent, Liverpool's Minamino, they have Arsenal's Tomiyasu, they have a really young, fun striker who's owned by Real Madrid, but is on loan to Mallorca, and take Fuso Kubo. Japanese team was by far the best offense throughout Asian qualifying, over 40 expected goals in just under 20 matches. So it's a team that I think can give the Germans some trouble in that first match. And I think that is a larger point, is that I think Germany is a little bit vulnerable to potentially not get through here. We saw it at the Euros. They were in the group of death. They needed some late heroics to actually get through and actually beat Hungary to get through in the 3rd place. They have struggled a little bit throughout qualifying. They lost to North Macedonia, but ever since the Euros, they've won every single match against lower competition. The problem with Germany is I don't know what they're going to do in defense. And it was a real problem in the group of death, because if they're really going to go with a back line of Rudiger, Hummels, and Matthias Ginter that got thrashed by both Portugal and France, and even Hungary, they really are live to potentially miss out on this. But Spain, look out for them to potentially win it. I mean, they're one of the favorites, obviously, to win it all. I have them ranked as the 2nd best team in the world. A lot of fun, young talent on that team. Just not a team that you would look at and you'd say, all right, here's the one star player for them, but just so much good talent. I put them in the same class as England, of a team that has just talent around the field, but also depth. And that's very key in this tournament, because we'll talk about it a little more, but we're playing this in the middle of November. There's going to be 3 months of club soccer going on before that. So injuries can definitely happen and basically take out some of these teams from the tournament who are very reliant on one-star players. So teams like England, Brazil, and Spain, they should be the overwhelming favorites given the depth of talent that they have in those squads.
We're 233 days from the competition in Qatar, so still a long ways to go. So Leboff mentioned, and BJ kind of hinted at this with Germany. So Spain is tied for the 4th longest odds to win the World Cup this year at plus 750. Then you've got Germany, the number 12th ranked team in the world, and they're at 10-1. How do you feel about Germany making any noise here, or someone else in Group B?
Yeah, this is the never say never group, and Germany was in that same group in the last World Cup when they played against Sweden, Mexico, and Korea, and they finished last. So that's what people always forget about these tournaments, is it's just going to be chaos. There's a lot of variance. It's really, data for international soccer is so noisy. You can't really depend on like the long-term predictive metrics that we rely on when we handicap the Premier League and the other major leagues in Europe. So with this, it does behoove people to kind of think from the pitch backwards. How can this team not get through? And there are some paths, I think, for Germany. This is a new manager. They, like BJ said, they did struggle under Jogi Löw in his last couple of years in charge of Die Mannschaft. And I think he made a great point about Spain, which is they've kind of become what Germany was when they were dominant in the early part of the 2000s and into the this last decade that just passed. where they were just a machine, because this is a team that grew up together, played together, and the sum of its parts were much greater than, the individuals. And now Spain is kind of like that with Pedri and Xavi in the middle. Like, these are incredible up and coming talents. So look, Spain plus 750 in this World Cup. I'm pretty sure they're going to be the favorite in 2026, which I know is a long way from now, but this team is just going to get better and better and better. So even though it's a short number at plus 750 in a tournament that it could have chaos, I don't hate it. And I think that they should get through here without a problem, whereas Germany might have a little bit of a slug here.
Let's go to Group F, and Leboff, want to go right back to you, because there's Canada once again, the fourth favorite in this group at 250-1, as you talked about off the top. Now there's a little bit of a difference. That's a bet you want to make now as opposed to the long shot that you'll pick later in the show. But Belgium's the favorite in terms of winning the World Cup, but likely, of course, based on those odds, the favorite to come out of Group F. So Belgium, you're saying that off the top of the show. So you're basically making the point that Belgium is no sure thing.
Yeah, I think that, this Belgium team, they sure do have a lot of talent, but we've seen this group in so many tournaments already, and they're now aging out of their prime. And their manager, Roberto Martinez, he's a romantic, and we love him for that, but he doesn't set his team up in pragmatic ways sometimes when they need to be. Go back to last World Cup. They had to come back from 2-0 down against Japan in the round of 16 just to qualify for the quarterfinals. Everyone's going to think, oh, they made a nice run in the last World Cup, and they got to the knockout stages and made some noise again in the Euros. But this team is heavily flawed, and sure, they have a high ceiling, but their floor, I mean, I could see them absolutely capitulating in a group with Croatia, who, yeah, they're older, but Luka Modric is a match winner on his own, and they still have talented players in the middle of the park that can really just dictate a game and on any given night. And then, like I said, Canada, this is a team that I think is going to be plucky, and they're going to be a surprise package. And the reason I like them, as I said off the jump, is because I don't see this number in Canada going anywhere but down. And I could see it, ending up around 100-1 as we get into the tournament, because this is a very favorable draw for them. I think Belgium still gets through, but I like Canada to be the team that rides with them into the round of 16.
Goal.com ranks Belgium, BJ, the number 2 team in the world, and Belgium's at 12-1 to win the World Cup. How do you look at Group F, your breakdown?
I think Group F is the most up for grabs group of any of the groups in the whole World Cup. So if you want to take a chance on Canada or Morocco to win this group, I think they're absolutely live. Michael hit the nail on the head. The golden generation is over for Belgium. They just really don't have the talent, and especially in defense, because I don't really know what they're going to do. Are they really going to go with another pairing of Jonathan Denayer and Jan Vertonghen, who's like 36 now? I mean, they just really don't have talent in defense. Up top, obviously Romelu Lukaku, he's been out of favor at Chelsea. Eden Hazard is way past his prime. He keeps getting injured. They obviously have a good midfield with Yuri Tillemans and Kevin De Bruyne, but they're not the number 2 team in the world anymore. I mean, I have them ranked as 9th. So they are by far the most vulnerable team of anybody out of pot 1, obviously outside of Qatar. But Canada and Morocco, I think, are very, very live to potentially get through here. Croatia, very similar to Belgium. They're getting past their golden generation. They don't really have the talent per se. They used to be this type of team where you look at the top teams in the world, and the very next tier down, it was Croatia. Well, now it's Denmark. So Croatia is really starting to fall off. They did make it through, the Euros to the round of 16 and took Spain to extra time, but it's a team that's just too old and just really lacking the type of talent to make noise in this World Cup. So, I think a bet on both Morocco and Canada to qualify and get through to the next round, I think has a ton of value. The Moroccan team, I'll talk about them later, but I am just in love with this team, and I really think that have the talent to get through this group and potentially even win it.
And Croatia was the great story 4 years ago in 2018, reaching the final. We go to Group G, the favorite to win the World Cup in 2022, Brazil at plus 450. BJ, back to you, Brazil.
Yeah, they should. I mean, they should be
more in depth here. Of course, I think you're going to say they're going to come out of the group, but Brazil's chances here in this World Cup.
No, I mean, they're just as good as I would say England or Spain. And I put them in that same category, as I think there's basically 3 teams that are not head and shoulders, but in a class of their own for this World Cup because of not only the talent on the field, but the depth of talent. I mean, this Brazilian team just is stacked from Neymar to Vinicius Jr. up top, from Casemiro in midfield to Eder Milito and Marquinhos in defense, and Alisson, Liverpool's keeper. I mean, it's just there's just so much talent across the board for this Brazilian team. And they showed it throughout South American qualifying. They were the number one team in the group. They're an incredible defense. They should pretty much cruise through this group. I am way more interested in the Serbia-Switzerland dynamic here of who's going to finish second, because I think Serbia, like I already mentioned, has way more talent than Switzerland, but Switzerland is this type of team that you look at it and you're like, all right, they don't really have the talent per se to get through essentially a group like this, but it's a team that's been playing together for such a long time and is just so cohesive and knows what they want to do. I mean, they won their qualifying group over Italy, and it's what forced Italy to go into the UEFA qualification playoffs and ended up losing to North Macedonia. So this is still a really good team, but yeah, I think Brazil should cruise and get number one in this group. There definitely should be one of the favorites to win the World Cup, but at plus 450, I don't really think there's much value in betting them to actually win the World Cup. But I really think Serbia is getting through. And then Cameroon, they obviously had AFCON in their home country. They had a good performance. They lost an extra time to Egypt, but I think they're most audibly going to end up finishing last in this group.
All right, Leboff. So Brazil, the clear favorite in Group G. Your assessment of Group G for us?
Yeah, I mean, Brazil, I think a lot of times the stereotype around Brazil going into these tournaments is they can beat you in one way, which is they're going to play beautiful soccer. They're going to put the ball on the floor and pass and move around you. But this team could beat you in 10 different ways. They have a great defense. BJ said they have two of the world's best goalkeepers. So if there's any issue with one of them maybe getting out of form or getting hurt before the tournament, Brazil's Achilles heel for so long was goalkeeper, and now they have two of the best in the world. So there's no problems there. And like you said, Neymar, Martinelli, Vinny Jr., Richarlison, Rafinha, like they have so many match winners up front that this should be pretty straightforward for them. But like BJ, I'm very interested in Serbia. I think that this team, not only are they're going to be tough to beat. They're kind of like the cliche team nobody wants to play. And when you get into the playoffs and other sports or tournaments in soccer, because they're physical, they're big, they believe in themselves, and they have a lot of attacking talent. Vlahovic is having a career year in Italy right now. So I think of all the in Group G of the four teams, like Serbia definitely has the most betting interest to me. I think 80-1 is a pretty good number. I don't think that betting them to win the group per se will have the upside that you want as a bettor, but so I would rather chase something bigger like them when they start putting markets up for, how far can teams go. I think Serbia's live to maybe make a run to the quarterfinals or, maybe even semifinals.
Okay, on to our eighth and final group, Group H. Portugal, ranked number 8 in the world according to Goal.com at 12-1. BJ, Group H, Portugal's your favorite.
Yeah, I mean, they should be the favorites, but I definitely think that they're pretty vulnerable. I mean, the Uruguayan team when you look at Portugal, they have Cristiano Ronaldo, and they have so many great attackers, from Diego Jota to Andre Silva to Bruno Fernandes. Like, it's just, the type of attackers that they can throw at you, it's some of the best of anybody in the entire world. But you look in the midfield and you're like, okay, is it really going to be Ruben Neves and Jair Moutinho who play together at Wolves? Like, they're going to get dominated by any other team who has at least a decent midfield. Then you look at defense. They obviously have Ruben Dias, who should be healthy, and he's one of the best center backs in the world. But are they really going to play a 40-year-old Pepe next to him? Down the wing, obviously, wing backs, Rafael Guerreiro and João Cancelo, who plays for Manchester City, very, very good, and Jose Sa in net. So it's a good team, but I don't think it's a team that I'm going to be really betting on to actually win the World Cup. I think I have too many questions in the midfield and defense for Portugal. Uruguay, they had some struggles for a while throughout South American qualification, but it's a really, really good team with some solid pieces in up front, with obviously Luis Suarez and company in defense. They're probably going to go with Nicolas Otamendi and a couple other guys, but a really, really solid team, or excuse me, not Nicolas Otamendi, plays for Argentina, my bad. Jimenez, who plays for Atletico Madrid, that's what I was thinking of. It's just a really, really solid team that is starting to come on and play much better at the end of qualification. So Uruguay is another team I'm looking at 50-1 to win this tournament. I think they're definitely one of the teams I'll be picking to get through this group. Ghana is one of the more overrated teams, along with Saudi Arabia, one of the teams I'll be betting to, have the lowest point total or have scored the least goals. They got really lucky to beat Nigeria in that World Cup playoff. And then South Korea, is also pretty interesting. Heung-min Son, who plays for Tottenham, is their star player. He's obviously been just ripping up Asian qualification. Hee Chen Hwang, who plays for Wolves, is another great talent that they have. So South Korea is kind of interesting. I mean, South Korea should be able to beat Ghana in the matches against Portugal, and Uruguay will be pretty interesting. So I'll be very interested to see what South Korea's odds are to get through, potentially win this group, because I think they could potentially be live to make some noise in this tournament.
Portugal, like the Netherlands and Belgium, 12-1 to win the World Cup in 2022. Leboff, take us home. Your thoughts on Group H?
Yeah, I actually had very little betting interest in Uruguay until the draw. I think that they're a team that bettors love to get behind for these tournaments because they're a great pragmatic defensive side. And for a long time, for like a decade, it was Godin and Jimenez in the middle of that defense with Suarez and Cavani up top. So they could nick games. They can just slog games out to the 80th minute. And then all of a sudden Suarez or Cavani pulls out a moment of magic. And before them, it was, Diego Forlán. Like this has been a tried and true recipe for this team forever. They made a managerial change after about a decade with Oscar Tabarez, who loved playing with that approach and making this a really, really solid structured side. So I'm interested to see like where they go for the next few months here. But I think BJ is right. Like they are live because they're going to be tough to break down. They have the strikers who win games in like the late stages of matches, and their defense should still be pretty well structured. I like Portugal though. I think that they're at 12-1. They're definitely live. This is a team that can score in bunches. Jota, Ronaldo, Bernardo Silva. We can go down the line. And I trust Ruben Diaz to be the Virgil van Dijk of this side, like Van Dijk would be for Netherlands, and get this defense well organized. And the goalkeeper, like BJ said, Jose Sa, like don't overlook that. He's been spectacular for Wolves this season. And in the World Cup, you're probably going to need to win a penalty shootout or two to get through. So if in terms of the peripheral stuff, I think Portugal actually checks a lot of boxes here. So I like Portugal. I like Uruguay. I think they're both bettable in a couple different markets, and I wouldn't argue against either one of them.
Great stuff, guys. Group A through H, all broken down here on the podcast. If you're tuning into the Action Network podcast, we encourage you to scroll back and find details on each group. Of course, we have you on YouTube as well, live or the recorded version. So go back and look and see each group breakdown in terms of teams that each of these guys like to come out of the group. Not only that, but also maybe a long shot team to win the World Cup this year in Qatar. So we teased this off the top. We will give Team USA some attention here for a couple of minutes. The question with Team USA, 100-1 to win the World Cup in 2022. A nice nugget here from BetMGM. Their data reported yesterday, Thursday, that the U.S. has taken a whopping 30.4% of the tickets to win it all in Qatar. That is well ahead of the 9.6% of the tickets on reigning champion France and also five-time tournament winner Brazil. So the public money is coming in on the United States. Is Team USA playable in 2022, BJ?
Yes, I would say yes. I have them ranked as the 11th best team in the entire world. They've obviously been the best team throughout CONCACAF qualifying. You may not see it in the final table standings, but they had the best expected goals for and against of anybody in the entire qualification. It's a different U.S. team than we've seen in years past. Obviously, we didn't qualify for the 2018 World Cup, but we have an out-and-out star in Christian Pulisic, and we have talent around him with Gio Reyna, from Musa, from a bunch of other guys like Tyler Adams in midfield. It's a team with Timothy Weah up top. I mean, we have loads and loads of young talent across the pitch. Now, yeah, when you talk about winning the World Cup, you have to talk about the path. So if U.S. finishes in second in Group E, which I think is most likely, they're going to have to probably play the Netherlands or Senegal in the next round, which is not the best of matchups. But if they get that match against England under their belts, against one of the best teams in the world, I think that's huge for us because since we didn't qualify for the 2018 World Cup, we haven't played some of the best teams in the world in a really, really long time. It's just been Gold Cup and CONCACAF qualifying. So that England match is going to be, and especially a match against whether it be Wales, Scotland, or Ukraine, whoever comes out of the Euro playoff, it's going to be very interesting to see how the U.S. handles some of that talent. Now, the good news is we're not just using MLS players like years past. We're using guys who are playing in the top leagues in Europe. So they're used to playing these type of teams. But at 100-1, I think is a decent number for, I have as the 11th ranked best team in the world. So I think the U.S. is definitely playable at 100-1.
When you're talking about cheering for your country, if I may add, it's the one exception, I think, in sports where you're allowed to say we. You know, like if you're like a pro sports team in your town and you use we, I kind of give you that eye roll that like, come on, really, you're not them. But this is a little different when you're repping your nation's colors or your nation's flag. Just wanted to get that off my chest. Leboff, how do you feel about Team USA? Playable coming out of Group B, possibly coming out of Group B, but 100-1 to win the World Cup.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it's hip to be square, and while at this number, it's certainly playable. 100-1 is giving them a 1% chance to win the entire thing, which, you know, probably is fair, because when you think about what who the teams are going to have to beat if they get through in the round of 16, round of 8, you're going to have to beat Spain, and then you're going to have to beat, you know, Portugal or Brazil back to back to back to back. Like, so really, really tough path, but that's why they're 100-1. So the fact that I'll also say the fact that odds makers haven't really adjusted them down to where Senegal is, for example. Senegal was 100-1 before the draw. Now they're 50-1, and they haven't adjusted USA down from 100-1 to anywhere from before the draw, despite taking all this money. Tells you that, you know, they're welcoming the money in. They don't believe in the team. And I mean, you can't blame them for that because of what I just said with the path. But I think that at this number, they're certainly playable. If this thing was around, you know, 50-1, yeah, I mean, you could still bet them, because we're not going to judge anybody for betting on their home country to win the World Cup, right? Serious FOMO if that happens and you're not on the train with it, right? So I think 100-1, you're getting a really nice number to be a part of that ride, and a team that, like BJ said, they have a high ceiling, and I wouldn't be surprised if they make some noise in the group. But I think that if you're going to bet them, you know, go big or don't go at all, and take them to win it all.
World Cup starts in 233 days in Qatar. Before we wrap up this episode on the TAM podcast, also to our video audience on YouTube, let's get favorite bet to win the World Cup, the 2022 World Cup. BJ, we'll start with you, and then Leboff, please.
Yeah, for me, it's England at 6-1. Listen, a long shot has pretty much never actually won the World Cup. So if you really are serious about winning, picking a winner, obviously we love taking all these long shots because they have value. But one of the favorites is going to win this World Cup. And I think it's going to be England, who I think is the best team in the entire world. Like I already mentioned, just the depth of talent that they have with Harry Kane up top, and the amount of attacking midfielders from Bukayo Saka, Jack Grealish, Phil Foden, Raheem Sterling that they can throw at you, from a really solid defensive midfield of Declan Rice and Calvin Phillips to a solid defense, you know, of Harry Maguire, Ben Whites, John Stones, whoever you want to throw back there. It's a team that is going to win their group. They're going to have a pretty decent path to get to the World Cup final. At 6-1, I really think that they should be the second favorite. I think they should be above France and Spain. So I think it's coming home. I think football is finally coming home. I think England's going to win the World Cup at 6-1.
Man, for me, I know BJ was saying earlier on that he's not a believer in Portugal. I'm going to spend these next 7 months trying to convince him to get on the Ronaldo train with me.
I thought he was going to say the next like 7 minutes. I'm like,
oh no, he'll be on me all 7 months.
Yeah. No, we're going to be talking a lot about this Portuguese side. They've already won a major tournament too, which is a huge burden off their shoulders. And when you go back to Euro 2016, and what that tournament showed you is everything comes down to the path when you're betting these tournaments. Think about Croatia in 2018. This is what they had to do to get to the final after advancing from the group. They beat Denmark, Russia, and then England. Shootout, extra time. So a lot of luck has to go your way, but also you need to catch a break with the path. And I don't hate Portugal's second round potential matchup. We both said that we kind of are interested in Serbia as a long shot play, but Portugal will be favored over them if they win the group in the round of 16. And from there, it's a fool's errand to try to game it out. So this Portuguese side has a favorable draw in a pretty easy group with Uruguay, Korea, and Ghana. And we know that they have the talent to outscore teams. And I think I trust this defense. Finally, for the first time in a long time, Portugal has a back line that you can go to sleep at night and feel pretty good about, especially with Ruben Dias in the back. And like Peter said, João Cancelo is a great fullback. And then do we even have to mention the attacking talent? Ronaldo, Diogo Jota, Bruno, Bernardo Silva. These guys are going to be able to beat teams in more than one way. They can outscore them. They can grind out results. I like this Portuguese side. 12-1, I think, is a pretty good number.
All right, before we wrap up this World Cup draw betting breakdown here on the Action Network. All right, come on, let's do a long shot. And Leboff revealed this to us before we got started. Since 2002, longest odds to win the World Cup, were Germany 2014, Italy in 2006. They were both plus 800. So as BJ hinted at, Longshot has never won this thing. But if you had to pick one for the people, BJ, give us a long shot.
Morocco at 200 to 1. I love it. I think Morocco is the second best team in Africa behind Senegal. I would have said Senegal if they didn't drop from 100 to 1 to 50 to 1. I think it's a little too trendy, but Morocco really just dominated throughout the Africa Cup of Nations. They just thrashed everybody in their path, and then they got really unlucky against Egypt in the playoff. It's a team that has talent, that's playing at some of the top leagues in the world. You know, En-Nesyri, who plays for Sevilla in La Liga. They have potentially one of the best right backs in the world in Achraf Hakimi, and they just have solid players around the pitch. They're a really good pressing team. They're a team that can give you a lot of fits, and they're in a very, very favorable group, like I already mentioned, with Canada, Belgium, and I'm forgetting Croatia. So the path isn't great for coming out of Group F because you're going to have to play the counterpart of Group E in the first round. But at a price of 200 to 1, if they potentially finish second and they have to play Spain, who at the Euros showed that they are very, very vulnerable in knockout style soccer. I mean, they went to extra time with Croatia, and then they just continually, even though they put up, great expected goals numbers every single match, they tended to struggle with a lot of teams that had a little bit of talent. So it's not crazy to think that Morocco can't pull off an upset against Spain in the round of 16 to potentially make a run in this type of tournament with the talent that they have. So at 200 to 1, I love the Moroccan side to potentially win the World Cup.
Leboff, your long shot, 2022 World Cup.
Like BJ said, a lot of love is going to go to Senegal in this market, looking for a dark horse. For me, I would suggest you go one step further in Group A and look at Ecuador, 150 to 1 right now. They're playing Qatar in the first match. If they get those 3 points, these odds immediately slash. So you're looking at them being a favorite, even on the road, I think, against Qatar. And this is a team that actually has the talent to make some noise in a very soft group. I think there's some merit to World Cup qualifying, depending on what the setup is. And in CONMEBOL, there should be some, right? Like you're going to places like Bolivia, Brazil, Argentina. You're playing in really, really tough environments. If you get out of the group and you don't even have to play in the playoff as a young team, that shows me something. It shows me you got a little bit of moxie. And I think this Ecuador team, not only do they have moxie, they have a lot of talent. Piero Hincapié, Estupiñán, Cifuentes, Felix Torres, and Moises Caicedo. These are young emerging talents from South America. So with an opening match against Qatar in a soft group, I think 150 to 1 on a team that has the upside to pull a couple stunners and is in a very, very favorable draw is worth a couple pennies.
Chance, great stuff. That was a lot of fun. And I'm sure your coverage will continue over on the Action Network as the next 7 months unfold. And you'll both be hearing from each other, as BJ hinted at. You'll be in each other's ears, Slack channels, text messages, phone calls, perhaps, discussing the World Cup, which is 233 days away, the 22nd edition of the FIFA World Cup in Qatar this winter. So again, like I mentioned, keep an eye on BJ Cunningham and Michael Leboff's work on the Action Network. Thanks for all of you that tuned in live on the YouTube stream. You can go back and watch, of course, on our Action Network YouTube channel. And to those of you listening now on the Action Network podcast. For Michael Leboff and BJ Cunningham, Brendan Glasheen, thanks to tuning in to the World Cup draw betting breakdown. Again, go back in. You can find group by group breakdown, thoughts on Team USA, also some long shots, as well as each of the guys' favorite to win the 2022 World Cup. We'll catch you next time, and we'll see you very soon as the World Cup nears.